The rain hammered against the warehouse windows like bullets. Each drop a countdown to death. Marcus Chen pressed his bleeding shoulder against the cold metal door. His designer suit torn and soaked, his billion-dollar empire meaning nothing in this moment. Behind him, footsteps echoed. The men who'd tracked him here weren't far behind. "Please," Marcus gasped, looking at the single father who'd stumbled into this nightmare. "Take your daughter and go. Leave me. Save yourself." But Ethan Rodriguez didn't move. Instead, he pulled his 7-year-old daughter closer and did something that would shatter everything Marcus thought he knew about the world. 3 hours earlier, Marcus Chen had been untouchable. His face graced magazine covers. His name commanded respect in boardrooms across Manhattan, and his wealth could buy almost anything, almost. What it couldn't buy was the evidence he'd just stolen from his former business partner, evidence that proved Viktor Petrov had been laundering money through their joint ventures, evidence that could send Viktor to prison for life. Marcus had been careful, or so he thought. He'd copied the files, planned his escape, even arranged for federal agents to meet him at a secure location. What he hadn't planned for was Viktor's connections, his resources, or his absolute willingness to kill. The black SUVs had appeared out of nowhere on the rain-slicked streets of Brooklyn. Marcus had abandoned his car and run, his $1,000 shoes slipping on wet pavement, his breath burning in his chest. He'd never run for his life before. He'd never had to. Money had always been his shield, his armor, his answer to every problem, until now. The warehouse had loomed before him like a dark sanctuary. He'd forced the door, slipped inside, and that's when he'd seen them, a man and a little girl, huddled in the corner near a makeshift sleeping area. Homeless, Marcus realized with a shock that cut through his panic. A father and daughter living in this abandoned building. "You can't be here," Marcus had said, his voice sharp with fear and authority. "Dangerous men are coming. You need to leave now." Ethan Rodriguez had looked up with tired eyes that had seen too much hardship. His clothes were worn but clean, his face weathered but kind. The little girl in his arms, Maya, clutched a stuffed rabbit that had clearly been loved for years. "This is our home," Ethan had said quietly. "We don't have anywhere else to go." Before Marcus could respond, the sound of car doors slamming had echoed outside. They were here. Now, as Marcus leaned against the door with Viktor's men trying to force their way in, he understood the terrible truth. By coming here, he'd brought death to this innocent family. The father and daughter had nothing to do with corporate espionage, with money laundering, with the savage games the wealthy played. They were just trying to survive. "I'm serious," Marcus said through gritted teeth, his shoulder screaming with pain where a bullet had grazed him during his escape. "Take the back exit. There's still time. They want me, not you." Ethan stood, gently setting Maya down. "Stay here, baby," he whispered to her. Then he did the unthinkable. He walked toward Marcus and began pushing a heavy shelving unit toward the door, barricading it. "What are you doing?" Marcus stared at him in disbelief. "Are you insane? They'll kill you too!" "Maybe," Ethan said calmly, shoving another piece of debris against the door. "But I'm not leaving someone to die. That's not who I am. That's not what I want my daughter to learn." Marcus felt something crack inside his chest, not from the pain of his wound, but from something deeper. "You don't understand. I'm a billionaire. I have everything. You have nothing. Your life is worth—" He stopped. Hearing his own words, how monstrous they sounded. Ethan turned to him, and in his eyes, Marcus saw something he'd never seen in the boardrooms of Wall Street. Pure, uncomplicated human decency. "My life is worth exactly as much as yours," Ethan said simply. "And hers is worth more than both of ours? Combined," he nodded toward Maya. "Which is why I'm going. To get you both out of here." The door shuddered under heavy blows. A voice called out in Russian. They were running out of time. "There's a drainage tunnel," Ethan said quickly, moving to a grate in the floor that Marcus had never noticed. "It leads to the old subway lines, but it's narrow. You'll have to crawl." "Your shoulder, can you make it?" Marcus looked at this man, this father who had nothing, who was offering everything. "Why?" The word came out as a whisper. "Why would you risk your daughter for me?" Ethan lifted the grate, and Maya came to stand beside her father, her small hand slipping into his. 2 years ago, we had a home," Ethan said. I had a job, a future. Then my wife got sick. The medical bills came and they kept coming. The insurance company found ways to deny coverage. I sold everything, but it wasn't enough. She died anyway, and we ended up here. He looked at Marcus steadily. The system you're part of, it broke us. But you're still a human being, and I still have my humanity. That's all I have left. I'm not giving it up. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. How many companies had he bought and gutted? How many employees had he laid off to increase profit margins? How many times had he chosen money over mercy? The door began to splinter. They were out of time. Go, Ethan said, helping Marcus toward the tunnel. Take Maya with you. I'll hold them off, give you a head start. No. The word came from Marcus, strong and clear. He pulled the flash drive from his pocket, the evidence that had started all this. Take this. If I don't make it, give it to the FBI. It's worth billions in recovered assets. And when they recover that money, he looked at Maya, at her wide, trusting eyes. Make sure some of it goes to families like yours. Families the system failed, but Ethan was already shaking his head. He pushed the flash drive back into Marcus's hand and picked up a metal pipe. We're all going through that tunnel, together. I'll go last. Slow them down. What happened next would be seared into Marcus's memory forever. As the door burst open and armed men poured in, Ethan swung the pipe with desperate strength. Marcus grabbed Maya and dropped into the tunnel, his wounded shoulder screaming. Above, he heard shouts, the sound of a fight. Then Ethan's body dropping into the tunnel behind them. Go! Ethan shouted, blood streaming from a cut above his eye. They crawled through the darkness, Maya between them, moving through the ancient tunnels beneath Brooklyn. Behind them, voices echoed, but the narrow passage slowed their pursuers. Marcus's expensive watch scraped against the concrete. His designer clothes ruined. His entire world reduced to the next meter of tunnel. The next breath, the next moment of survival. They emerged in an old subway station, long abandoned. Marcus pulled out his phone, miraculously, still working, and called the number the FBI had given him. Help was coming. They just had to stay alive 10 more minutes. Victor's men emerged from the tunnel behind them. There were 3 of them, armed, their intentions clear. Ethan stood, placing himself between the guns and his daughter, between the guns and Marcus. A man with nothing, protecting everything that mattered. Marcus stood beside him. For the first time in his privileged life, he understood what courage really meant. Not the courage to make bold business deals or hostile takeovers. The courage to stand between evil and innocence, knowing you might die. The men raised their weapons, and then sirens filled the air. Beautiful, piercing sirens. The FBI burst in, agents flooding the platform, and Victor's men were on the ground. Handcuffed, their weapons kicked away. It was over. In the ambulance, as paramedics treated his shoulder, Marcus watched Ethan hold his daughter. Maya was crying now, the terror finally catching up with her. Ethan whispered to her, stroking her hair, and Marcus saw love in its purest form. 6 months later, Marcus Chen stood in front of a new building in Brooklyn. The sign read, Second Chances. Community Center. It had cost him $50 million to build and endow, and it was worth every penny. Inside were housing resources, medical care, job training, and legal aid, all free, all for families like Ethan's, families the system had failed. Ethan Rodriguez was the director. He'd tried to refuse, saying he wasn't qualified, but Marcus had insisted. You're the most qualified person I know, Marcus had said. You never lost your humanity. That's the hardest qualification to meet. Viktor Petrov was in federal prison. The recovered assets had funded dozens of initiatives, medical debt forgiveness, affordable housing, educational programs. Marcus had restructured his entire business philosophy. Profit still mattered, but people mattered more. As Marcus watched Ethan and Maya cut the ribbon on the center's opening day, he thought about that night in the warehouse, about a father who'd had every reason to walk away and didn't, about a little girl who'd shown him that true wealth isn't measured in dollars. His phone buzzed with notifications, meetings, deals, opportunities. But Marcus silenced it and walked toward Ethan and Maya instead. Thank you for saving my life, he said. Ethan smiled. Thank you for saving ours. But Marcus shook his head. You had nothing, and you risked everything. I had everything, and I almost lost what mattered most, the chance to be human. Maya looked up at him with those same trusting eyes from that terrible night. "Mr. Chen," she said, "Daddy says you're family now." Marcus knelt down, and for the first time in his calculated, controlled life, he let tears fall freely. "I'd be honored," he whispered. That night in the warehouse, a single father had made a choice that seemed impossible: to stand firm when running would save him, to help when helping might destroy him. And in making that choice, he'd saved more than one life. He'd saved a soul. Sometimes the poorest among us are the richest in the things that truly matter. And sometimes it takes losing everything to finally understand what we had all along: each other, our humanity, our choice to be kind, even when the world gives us every reason not to be.